Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of FS MaNiA. Today we are at the Ketchikan International Airport in Ketchikan, Alaska. We flew in here a couple of weeks ago in Cessna's flagship, the Citation 10. And since there's so much water and so many seaplane bases around Ketchikan, we took the opportunity to do a little seaplane flying in the de Havilland DH-6 Twin Otter. If you haven't already, be sure to check out those videos on the FS MaNiA channel. Now if I sound a little more raspy than usual, it's because I'm fighting off a bit of a cold. So just bear with me until we get through this introduction. The flight portion of the video, I will just be a little raspy because I didn't have a cold when I was recording that portion of the video. Most of our time spent here in Ketchikan has been flight training in the recently released RealAir version 2 of the Turbine Duke. This morning we will be flying the Turbine Duke approximately 200 nautical miles northwest to Juneau, which is the state capital of Alaska. Both the Ketchikan and Juneau sceneries we're using are payware scenery add-ons by Orbx. Located in the Alaskan Panhandle, Juneau is one of the largest cities by area in the United States. Juneau has been the state capital of Alaska since 1906. The geographic area of Juneau is larger than the U.S. states of Rhode Island and Delaware individually and almost as large as the two states combined. In 2013, the population was close to 33,000 people, making it the second most populous city in Alaska after Anchorage. Juneau is rather unusual among U.S. capitals in that there are no roads connecting the city to the rest of Alaska or to the rest of North America. The absence of a road network is due to extremely rugged terrain surrounding the city. This in turn makes Juneau a de facto island city in terms of transportation, since all goods coming in and out must go by plane or boat. Downtown Juneau sits at sea level below steep mountains up to 4,000 feet high. On top of these mountains is the Juneau ice field, a large ice mass from which about 30 glaciers flow. Two of these, the Mendenhall Glacier and the Lemon Creek Glacier, are visible from the local road system. Juneau has a maritime climate which provides plenty of rain and snow. Precipitation falls on Juneau an average of 230 days per year. Juneau International Airport, identifier Papa Alpha Juliet November, is a city-owned airport and seaplane base located 7 nautical miles northwest of the Central Business District. The airport serves as a regional hub for all air travel, both bush carriers and the regional Alaska Airlines. The airport averages over 86,000 annual aircraft operations for an average of 237 per day. Because of the extreme geography of southeastern Alaska, land flat enough for airport facilities is at a premium. The airport is located on the Mendenhall Wetland State Game Refuge, a vastly diverse and ecologically critical region. The airport is the only way in and out of the city, with the exception of the Alaska Marine Highway and cargo ships traversing the inside passage. In the past, concerns have been raised over the safety of the airport, which is comparatively small considering the amount of traffic it receives. 3 major construction projects are planned at the airport in the next few years, which include a terminal renovation project, a new airfield maintenance facility, and an extension of the runway at both ends with improved taxiways to meet current FAA requirements. I'm going to just say right off the bat, the Turbine Duke is without a doubt one of the finest general aviation aircraft that I have personally flown in FSX. It has everything a flight simmer could ask for from an aircraft developer and more. In this version 2 release, RealAir has made major updates to the model, including extensive flight model improvements, high-definition 2048 pixel textures, a new custom sounds package, more character in the cockpit textures including dust, smudges, and wear marks. Both the Reality Garmin GNS series and Flight 1's Garmin GTN series can be easily integrated into the radio stack. Also in the update, there is completely reworked and much improved lighting, including 3D lights in the virtual cockpit, and new 3D lights in the exterior view with custom runway light splash. Personally, I've not been able to find anything negative to say about this aircraft. And icing on the cake is you get ample, well-written documentation to assist you in learning systems, engine management, and flying techniques. If the Turbine Duke looks almost identical to the turbocharged piston Duke B60 we flew in a previous VFR flight video in Seattle, it's because the Turbine Duke is an aftermarket stepchild of the B60 with a STC, which stands for Supplemental Type Certificate. You see, ever since Beech rolled out its Model 60 Duke in 1968, the slant nose twin has turned heads. If you looked up ramp appeal in the aviation dictionary, the Beech Duke would probably appear as an example. Its stylistic lines, steeply raked nose, and towering tail of equal slant give the Duke an imposing ramp appeal. However, the original Duke is considered to be the aviation equivalent of a bimbo. It has the looks, but unfortunately lacks the performance to back it up. Although the B60 Duke's original Lycoming TIO 541 engines are rated at seemingly adequate 380 horsepower each, it quickly becomes apparent on throttle up that not enough of that power makes it to the propellers. The big and heavy engines with relatively small diameter props result in a Duke that was never much of a performer. It loves its runway, and it takes its sweet time gathering up steam to climb. To add insult to injury, the Lycoming TIO 541 is somewhat of a rare power plant. Therefore, its overhaul costs run about $55,000 each. To make matters worse, the TBO, or time before overhaul, is a mere 1,600 hours, compared to a TBO of 3,500 hours for the reliable PT-6 turbine engine. Rocket Engineering in Spokane, Washington, offers the STC that replaces the Duke's 800-pound Lycomings with lighter weight, yet more powerful Pratt & Whitney PT-6A-35 engines. The result is everything the Duke should have been, not just eye candy for ramp dwellers. With 1,050 total shaft horsepower, the Royal Duke is quite a performer. With a maximum takeoff weight of 7,000 pounds, the Royal turbine can leap off the ground in about 1,000 feet and maintain a sustained climb rate of up to 4,000 feet per minute. On cold days, cruise speeds can flirt with 300 knots true in the mid-20,000 foot range. On landing, the Royal turbine needs about the same 1,000 feet of runway needed for takeoff thanks to propeller reverse. The Rocket Engineering conversion provides much more than new engines. It also includes a new instrument panel with digital engine gauges and a new radio stack. Fortunately for us, this Royal turbine is equipped with a pair of Flight One's version of the Garmin GTN 750. The GTN stands for Garmin Touchscreen Navigation. The GTN 750 features fully integrated GPS, nav, comm, and MDF functions. The intuitive graphical touchscreen interface gives quick and easy access to terrain mapping, graphical flight planning, charts, traffic display, and much more. You may remember from our previous RealAir Duke video that only about 350 B60s were manufactured between 1974 and 1983 when Beech ended Duke production. As far as I can tell, less than 10% of those B60s have undergone the Royal Turbine STC conversion, making this an extremely rare bird indeed. In a perfect world, one could find a well cared for late model Duke with low airframe time and run out engines for $250,000 to $300,000 depending on avionics and equipment. After the $930,000 Royal turbine conversion, you'll have a 290 knot twin turboprop with new engines for a total investment of about $1.3 million US. Alrighty, it's time to take this $1 million baby up and see what she's made of. So hop in, buckle up, and let's go flying. Hello and welcome aboard FS MaNiA's flight from Ketchikan, Alaska to Juneau, Alaska in the RealAir Turbine Duke. I was just sitting here admiring what an awesome job RealAir did in modeling this aircraft, and to make a very good airplane even better, we have added the Flight 1 Garmin GTN 750s, and we got two for the price of one, even better. And I left all the other Bendix King radios in here, even though they are redundant, just because I like a lot of stuff on the panel. So we have checked the weather, and there are some thunderstorms in the area, and the weather's kind of crappy in Juneau, so we will be flying IFR today. And we have our fuel on board, and let's go ahead and cut on our battery master And just check out our gauges here. We're indicating about 78 gallons in each tank, and I want to cut on our fuel selectors down here, get those on, and see we're indicating low pressure. And what I want to do is go ahead and check our weather. Let's cut on our avionics master here, and let's get in here where we can see, and I'm going to cut on a radio and tune in the AFIS, and the AFIS here, which is the Airport Facility Information Service, is 134.45. So let's flip that over, and yeah, I can use the Garmin's, but we'll just use this one to get the AFIS. Okay, so we've got Alpha, and now I'm just flipping us over to Ketchikan radio, and we're going to pick up our clearance. And I will say this, that I have decided not to use the same format for my air traffic control, which is usually me being the pilot and controller. One of the first signs of insanity is a person who is talking to themselves, and another sign is one who is answering themselves, and I've been doing that, so I'm going to allow you to hear my conversation, but the air traffic control's reply to me you will not hear. That's going to be in my headset. So with that, let's give them a call. Ketchikan radio, Duke 4628 Golf, looking for IFR to Juneau. And we have Alpha. I think it was Alpha. Or it might have been Papa. And he's reading me my clearance. I'm copying, and now I'll read it back to him. Duke 4628 Golf is clear to the Juneau Airport via the SCAL 1 departure, then is filed, climb and maintain 1000, expect flight level 220, 10 minutes after departure, contact Anchorage Center on 118.5, squawk 0316, clearance void at 1945, time now 1915. And that readback was correct, and so we have our clearance, and we can cut our avionics master back off, and let's continue with our checklist. Cabin doors are closed and latched, seat belts and shoulder harnesses are fastened, flight controls are free, full range of movement, and we can check here. I can see the aileron, so if I bank right, aileron down, bank left, aileron up, they are correct. Circuit breakers are all in. Our alternate static source is in the normal position. Cabin temperature mode here is off. Landing gear handle is up, and condition levers are in the cutoff position. And let's push the props up to full high RPM, and our throttles are in the idle position. And let's just check those make sure they're mapped properly. They look like they are. And left sub panel switches should be all off. Everything's off there. Oil doors are closed, ice deflectors closed, everything's closed. The only thing we've got on is the beacon, and all our anti-ice is off. And let's be sure this park and brake, yep, it's set. So we are good there. Now we can go ahead and bring our battery master is already on, and let's test these annunciators. There's that one, they all light up, and here's one over here, and they all light up. Now we have engine fuel pressures are showing that they are enunciating. I'm going to cut on the pumps. We hear the pump, we know the pump's operating, the enunciator extinguished, and same thing for the right pump. So both pumps are good, and I also can see down here that we are indicating fuel pressure, and it's in the green arc, and that's good. Voltmeter is right here, and it's indicating 25 volts or so. So that's good. Now we're ready to start, so we'll go ahead and start the right engine. Don't know why sometimes my EC Dock gets a mind of its own. So the propeller area is clear, and what I'll do for this engine is put myself in a position so I can see the oil pressure coming up and I can reach everything. So let's go ahead and bring this starter. Those generators actually were still in the on position. So what we want to do is let's get our ignition on, and let's get that one off, and let's verify right ignition is on. And we'll hit the starter. We're going to watch the NG rising up right here, and when we get to 12%, we're going to bring up our condition lever into low idle right along in there. Monitoring oil pressure has come up. ITT, we don't want it to go over into this yellow area, which is about 750. A little bit of shake when that prop starts turning. Starter's cut out. Let's cut the generator on and make sure that we don't get more than a 0.5 on the load meter. We didn't. We'll cut the generator back off, and it looks like we have a good light there. We're stable about 50%. So we just want to repeat the process for the left engine, and actually I can see that one right here. So let's cut this ignition down into the auto position, and let's bring this ignition on. Left ignition is indicating on. Starter coming on. Heard the starter cut out, and let's cut this generator on, and we have not got more than 5 amps. We have both generators on and both pumps are on. Let's cut this ignition down into auto, and that's our starter sequence. We have 2 good starts. We'll go ahead and bring on our inverter set up to main and avionics master on, and we can come over here and start cutting on some radios, getting our Garmin's fired up. We got that one already on. There's the ADF, and there's the other Navcom and transponder. So we'll have 2 transponders, and what we're going to do is continue and continue, and we'll clear out our message. And this one does not have the click spots.
TOS system test OK.
Good. The click spots, you don't hear the audible sound. This one you do, so that's okay. And one of the things we can do is go ahead and get our, right off the bat, let's go ahead and get our transponder squawk code set in. We'll enter that in. We are in the standby mode, and so that concurs. And let's go into our waypoints, and we'll set up some frequencies while we're here. So come over here to the Ketchikan airport, look at the frequencies, and we're going to put in, let's come down here, this is the Common Traffic Advisory Frequency, CTAF, so we'll put that in, and actually I already had it in there, didn't I? So good, it's in there, and let's get center in the bottom, 118.5, and those are set. Let's come back here, and we'll go ahead and get our flight plan plugged in. We'll bring that map up there. So flight plan, we've got our first waypoint in there, and on our route the first waypoint is the Level Island VOR, which is Lima Victor Delta Level Island. We're going to enter that, and then from there we're going to take a jet route, Jet 502. So this is how you enter a jet route. We just pick the waypoint, and we come down and hit load airway. It brings up a list of them. The jet route's down here. We pick that, and we're going to select an exit. The exit is going to be Sister Island, so let's come down here, and Sister's Island, we'll pick that and we'll load it up, and we've got our jet route in there, easy as pie. And then let's come down, add another waypoint, and let's get our destination, which is Papa Alpha Juliet November, otherwise known as Juneau, and we've got that in there. Now that's our flight plan, and let's get a departure procedure. So the Scal 1 departure, we pick departure, there's the Scal 1, and let's load that in there, and it's telling us what the departure is. Now I want to come over here to this one, and actually let's load the chart up. So this is the airport, and there's the departures, and the departure that we want is this one. So we're going to load it up. It's loading, and we can go into the full mode here or the split mode. So full mode, and we can sort of see what it's telling us to do here. Fly runway heading, intercept the actually that is not the departure, just made a little bit of mistake there, so we're going to back up. That is the wrong departure. Glad I caught that. So let's pick our departure as the Ketchikan, this one, Ketchikan 5 departure. Now let's load that one. There, that's better. Okay, so departing runway 11, climbing to 1,200 feet and turning right to 180 degrees, climbing at runway heading, and then turning right to 180 degrees and intercepting the 149 radial off of Annette Island. And then once we have, let's go down here. Okay, once we have reached 5,000 feet, then we can go direct. Now there is a way to zoom in and look around. I can't do it while it's in the virtual cockpit mode. If I bring up the 2D mode, it lets me move all around. So that's nice. You can do that. If you don't have paper charts, you can always come in and read the information right off of it. So nice little feature, have those charts in there. So we've got that in, and all that's loaded up. So while we're in here, let's go ahead and set our initial altitude of 11,000. Went too far. There's 11,000, and let's see if I can't go ahead and tell it I want 2,000 feet a minute on the climb. Maybe it'll let me do that. We'll see. And while we're down here, let's go ahead and check our pressurization. We're going to want to bring that up to, our cruise altitude is 22,000, so about 22,000 plus 500, which will give us a cabin altitude of about 9,000 feet. And straight up here with the rate controller is 500 feet a minute. We'll need a little bit better than that since we're going to climb at 2,000. And we'll set it up over there, and we'll check it after takeoff. So let's see, let's go back here to our map on this, and map on this. This one's set up for terrain, and let me just be sure I don't have that as loaded in there as magenta. I do want that in there loaded as magenta, so let me go back to the flight plan. Let's see. It's got the departure in there. Something tells me I'm forgetting a step. All the way to there. Oh, I think I know what it is. Let's go back to our map. And let's make sure, yeah, it's suspended right here. Unsuspended. There we go. Now, I don't know why it does that, but we got it unsuspended, and now we are going course 149 towards the Annette Island VOR, and that's what we want to do.
and we do have the magenta line, so that's all good. Okay, now going back to my checklist, and let me just be sure we got everything done, and I'm sure we don't. So we have set our transponder, it's on standby, and autopilot. There is a test we can do with the autopilot. So if we cut it on, and I'm going to go ahead and put in our departure heading, which is 115. So it's about right there. And if I cut this to heading, you see it's making the turn. That's the test. So I should be able to actually override that and disengage the autopilot, but it won't let me do that. But it did give me a good test for it. So we're going to use that as our test, autopilot test. And flight instruments, the only thing we can check here are these two. Can look to be sure we've got gyro suction, we do. And there's some adjustments that aren't on here that normally you can adjust your directional gyro and your attitude indicator up and down, but they don't have those, so that's okay. Prop sync is off, and altimeter is set, and flaps, we're going to set those 1 notch for takeoff, and trim, which is right here, we want that to be right about 10 degrees for takeoff, so that's set. And annunciator lights, I can see I'm just slightly in the beta mode. I'll come out of there, and let's get our taxi light on and taxi to runway 11 for departure. Clear on the left, clear on the right. I'll see you later, Juneau. It's been fun. Now for taxiing, what we're going to do is bring these up into the high idle, and basically that's going to give us, with all the power we've got, let's let this brake off, that's going to give us plenty of forward motion. So I'm going to use the beta mode to keep our speed down, and that will help adjust the pitch of the prop so that we won't get too fast here on the ground, and we won't have to use the brakes quite so much. I have to use them a little bit here until I get it set where I want it. Now we got an uphill climb, so I'm going to add some of the power lever back in, come out of the beta just a little bit, and we kind of monitor our ground speed right here on this GPS. Quite an airport they have here in Ketchikan. Don't know that I've ever flown in or out of an airport that has such steep taxiways. That's what you get when you're in rugged terrain here in Alaska. Just as rugged at Juneau. They did manage to keep the taxiways fairly level. Alright, there's our hold short line. Let's hold short and come into the idle detent there, and let's bring these back into the low idle just for now while we do our run up. Make sure we got these down. Yep, right there. And we'll set this brake again, keep them rolling away, and we'll do our before takeoff checklist. Park and brake set. Now there's a fuel pump test that we can do. Basically what we want to do is just cut off the pump. So we'll cut off pump 1, and just make sure we don't get an annunciator that the fuel pressure is low, and we can look down here and see it's holding steady. So we'll cut it back on for takeoff, and then this one as well, no annunciator, it's holding steady. And we want to cross feed these for about 10 or 15 seconds and just keep an eye and make sure fuel pressure is steady, fuel flow is steady, no annunciators come up, and those are all tested. So put this one back on to on, that one back on to on. So the biggest cause of engine failure in piston engines, in general aviation anyway, is fuel starvation. So we do extra checks on our fuel, make sure we're all good there. So what we're going to do for our run up is we're going to bring the power up slowly to about 1900 RPMs on our props. And it doesn't have to be exact, there it is. And we're monitoring our ITT and our NG, making sure we're not exceeding those limits, and we're going to exercise our prop governors, and these are very well modeled on this. So when I bring them back, you can hear them and see the RPMs drop. I'll bring them back up, and this gets some hot oil flowing through the governor. So we'll just go ahead and do that a couple of times and then return them back to the full position. And gyro pressure, make sure we've got that. We can also check our anti-icing, where I got pneumatic pressure gauge over here. And let me go ahead and cut on the boots. I'll put it in a manual cycle, and you can see the gauge coming up showing that we have pneumatic pressure and the boots are working, and that's good. All our gauges are in the green. Oil temperature and pressure is good on both engines. Can barely see that one. And fuel flow, pressure, everything looks good. We'll bring those power levers back down to the idle, and everything's off. The annunciators, they're good. We want to go ahead and be sure this prop sync is off. It is. And let's get our pitot heat on, static heat on. And we won't use any ice protection right now. We may bring some on later on. And we are ready to go. Let me make sure we got 123.6 there in COM 1. Okay, let's get on some lights. Landing light and our strobes we want on, and our nav lights. Forgot to cut those on earlier. They should have already been on. Okay, so there's one mistake, or at least one that I know of. Ketchikan radio, Duke 4628 Golf. We'll be taxiing on to runway 11 for departure, Ketchikan. And releasing the brake. And let's bring these up into high idle. Okay, so we're going to climb to 1,200 feet on runway heading, and there's the center line. And then we're going to turn to 180 and intercept the radial, the 149 radial to Annette, and climb to 5,000. So I'm going to bring these back up. Let's bring this back down to low idle. That's how we're going to fly, with it in low idle. And let's see where we are right there. And let's go ahead and bring our flight director on, and I want to arm the altitude, and we'll arm the heading, and it's showing, there we are on runway heading. All that looks good. So what we're going to do for this takeoff is going to bring the power up slowly and let the props come up to 2200 RPMs. We do not need full power. There's the 2200, so we're going to release the brakes and then check the gauges, look at the NG. We're at 85% right now, so we're going to add some more, get it up to about 95%. Airspeed's alive. There's 60 knots, 80 knots, and we'll go ahead and doesn't take much. Gears up, and flaps coming up, and I'm going to bring the props back to 2000 RPMs. And there's 1200 feet, so we'll go ahead and turn over to 180. And let's go ahead and bring our autopilot in. Adjust those props back a little bit more. Ketchikan traffic, Duke 4628 Golf, departing the pattern to the south, Ketchikan. So we're on our way. After takeoff, booster pumps can come off. Landing lights, we've got the gear up. So we'll go ahead and take those off. Now that we've intercepted this radial, I'm going to go ahead and go into the nav mode, see what our message is. Set course 148. Okay, we can do that. And we're coming up through 3,700 feet. Let's go ahead and switch over to the center. Didn't need that. All I got to do is just tap it right there. Now we're switched. I'll get pretty close to that terrain there. I did turn to 180. We're coming up to 4,000, so we're going to go ahead and go now direct to our next waypoint, which is Level Island. So it's going to be a sharp turn. So what I want to do is hit our direct to, and let's go over here to our flight plan. Let's pick that one and let's activate it. And right turn, Clyde. And let's call center. Anchorage Center, Duke 4628 Golf. Checking in. We are off of Ketchikan, climbing through 6,000 for 1000 direct level island. And he called me back, said radar contact, climb and maintain flight level 220, up to 220 for 28 Golf. So we'll go ahead and adjust up. Let's go up to 220, and we're gonna, I always have a bad habit of going through it. So I'm trying to do multitask here. There it is, 220, and I sort of wanted to kind of look at the weather. Just keep an eye out for icing. And we're set on 2,000 foot a minute climb. And let's see, bring our props back just a little bit more, get them closer to that 2,000. I'm going the wrong way. There we go. There we go. And I want to get in here and just check these gauges out. NG is about 95%. We're at the top of the green arc and the torque. ITT is up around 718. Airspeed's about 170 knots. So we're going to keep all that right where it is. Our cabin is climbing at about 800 feet a minute, and we're up to 4,000 feet. So we got to watch this differential pressure. If it gets up here in the red, we'll get a warning. And all that looks good. We're direct LVL, it's 82 miles away. So let me just run through my after takeoff and my cruise climb and just be sure everything's good. Autopilot is on. I'd go ahead and cut on the yaw damper. And we did get those landing lights off, or did we? Yep, now we did. Landing lights, taxi lights off, and let's go ahead and cut on our prop sync. And we've checked our pressurization. We're climbing at 2,000. Let's look in on an oil temperature. It looks good. Pressure's good. So we can leave the old doors down. Looks like we're getting up above these clouds. That's good. Okay. And we'll change our altimeter once we get up above 18,000, and we're on our way to Juneau. Good stuff. While we got just a minute or two here in the climb, I'm going to just zoom in here and let's just look at our GPS and a few little things. We've got our wind indicator up here, and these are all customizable. Right here I've got altitude, and over here our minimum safe altitude, and that's for the sector that we're flying in. There's our ground speed. Outside air is minus 24 Celsius, and we are 75 miles away from the Level Island VOR direct, and then our next waypoint is Hoods. So really cool. Also, you can put this in what's called the pan mode. Just by clicking on it, you see it went into the pan mode. Now I can zoom into that. Let's say I wanted to zoom in here. I could do that, and or zoom out. You can pan around in here too, but I have to bring it out of the virtual cockpit into the 2D mode. So then it will let me pan around. Pretty cool. But let's put it back there. And to get out of that, you just hit the back button and we're back centered up. So that's how that works. And we're at 16,000, still climbing 2,000 feet a minute. And let's see what our power settings look like. It looks like we can add a little bit more power and stay in the green everywhere, so we're going to do that. Now, one thing that will happen when we level off is we really have to keep an eye on our power, because we can easily exceed the VNE, which is 200 knots indicated, and in level flight. So we have to really pay attention, and that probably is going to be our limiting factor today, as cold as it is. But yeah, ITT's coming up. I'm going to add a little bit more power in there. There we go. And fuel flow right now 36 gallons per hour, and when we level off and cruise, about a 33 gallon per hour per engine is about where we should be, and that'll get us pretty close to where we need to be over on our airspeed. And we're in the green, and NG is in the green. So green, 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 that's what we want. Oil temperature is still looking good, oil pressure is still looking good. So we're taking care of our engines, and they're taking care of us. It's a good day to fly to Juneau. So we're going to cut this part of the video right now. I say that, we'll go ahead and level off here, and then we'll cut this part and come back in the next part for the descent into Juneau. And there's the level off. And some fun facts about Juneau and fly the approach. And the weather looks pretty iffy there in Juneau, so we're going to have to be on our toes. Now that we're leveling off here at flight level 220, and notice our altimeter automatically went into the mode C, altitude reporting mode. I'm watching our speed come up before I do any power reductions. Fuel flows up at well, 33, actually pretty spot on where I want it to be. I may not have to touch the power. Our torques come down some, and ITT's well in range, NG's in range, everything's in range, so if anything I may need to add a little power. Pressurization looks good. We're leveled off there at 9,000. And yeah, I think we'll see if this is not coming on up. Should be getting, I mean, we should get right up there at 200. Let's see, indicating 242 with a 16 knot headwind, 243 knots. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of power, which is going to bring our fuel flow up. NG's coming up. And I think really in a turbine you just want to do everything slow, a little bit at a time. Give the engine a chance to spool up and see what you got. So that's right up there pretty much at the maximum speed. We're burning about 70 gallons per hour total. NG, ITT and torque all within limits. And prop sync, I did cut that on. They're not exact, but it works on trying to keep them the same. The RPMs are the same, so everything's good. Yep, good day to fly to Juneau, and I'm going to end part 1 there. Thanks for being with me on this part. Hope you'll come back for part 2 for the descent and arrival in Juneau. So from FS MaNiA, until next time, so long.
Tango 2, Bravo, X-ray, Bravo, turn right heading 080.
Right turn 080, X-ray, Bravo.